Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Christian Creative Network in conversation with Marlita Hill. Woo-hoo.
There were times when I would travel to minister to people and I was up on the stage dancing from my own life. Forget the rest of the people. I needed healing. You may not be a church artist, but you are definitely a kingdom artist. And so the church has its function and its assignment in the kingdom, but in the marketplace you have something separate.
Defying Discord. So this is a virtual book tour. I'm just going to read a blurb and then we're going to find out more about the author. But Defying Discord takes a raw, honest look at the turbulent relationships between the artist, their faith, and their career in the secular culture. Written as a conversation between friends, Marlita confronts the turbulence through unpacking one question: how do you serve, build, and represent the kingdom, working out there, making that kind of art with those people? Through biblical principles and everyday applications, Marlita liberates kingdom artists to build an unapologetic career life that freely, boldly, and honorably takes space in the secular context. I mean, if that doesn't make you want to read it, I don't know what does. But we can't really get into the book until we know who this wonderful lady is. So, hi, Marlita.
Hello, everybody. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining us, my friend. Just tell us, where are you joining us from and what time is it there?
So currently I am in Jackson, Mississippi. I just returned here a few days ago. I'm here to teach at Belhaven University for the fall semester. And currently it is about 2:09 in the afternoon here.
Awesome. And it's 8:09 in the evening here, so thank you. We've had many a conversation with Marlita where just for timings of days she's ended up being in the wee hours of the morning, and I've been in my working day hours, so it's a little bit easier for you tonight. It's not so early. So we've known each other for a couple of years. I know, in fact, I checked my notes just over 2 years ago. We connected on, I think, Instagram Messenger, and who knew that would start a wonderful relationship? So we've chatted many times since, and I'm always finding more about you. But just tell us a little bit about yourself, just so that all these wonderful people can just know who you are and where you've come from.
Sure. So my name is Marlita, and I am from Southern California, native, born and raised. Southern California. I am a choreographer and author. I've self-published multiple books, and an educator. I have a podcast. And so that's basically who I am. Have been working and thinking about this relationship between faith and art for about 20 years. I started in dance ministry, and then the Lord led me out of dance ministry into more of a marketplace art career. So it's really been a wonderful experience because I've gotten the chance to experience being an artist in relationship with God in multiple contexts, within the church and outside of the church. And so I speak from that experience.
You speak from a wealth of experience, and that's what I love about you. And I love you're true to God's calling on your life. Despite the hardships and trials, you've been true to what God's called you to do. And I believe that God has anointed you with a message and an authority to speak and deliver that message and communicate it. So Defying Discord isn't the only book you've written, is it?
No, it's not. So my first book is called Dancers Assume the Position, and that was looking at how the dancer serves and participates in what's going on within the local church. My second book was the second part of that, looking at how we as dancers in the body of Christ operate in professional dance careers. And that was kind of the precursor to this whole Defying Discord and Kingdom Artist Initiative direction. And then I wrote Defying Discord. After that, I wrote a book called Nail That Niche, which is about marketing and defining your work and your audience. I also created a course called The Kingdom Art Life, which you guys will hear about later. Hopefully I'll see you in that. And then I have outlined another book and have plans for another. So who knew I was going to be an
Yes.
author?
You are basically bubbling over with this stuff, and God has put it to you in a way that you can write it. So I'm just going to backtrack a bit, because when I launched the Christian Creative Network, I always wanted to be able to run some kind of course that would help artists and creatives have those conversations around creativity and faith, and within the secular context as well. And so, but I never felt the burden to write anything. I'm not a natural writer. I do build websites. That's my creative expression. And as part of that, there is copywriting involved, but it's hard work. And I would not be overflowing with the amount of books that you've written. So I know that we connected around the Kingdom Art Life course, which I'm not going to go into, but at the end I will just touch on that a bit. So I know that for, you can have an idea and you can want to do something, but there are very few that do. And I just want to honor you for doing that, for writing these books. Now I know you wrote this book, Defying Discord, a little while ago. So why now? Why are you doing this book tour now?
Well, so I wrote Defying Discord in 2019, and I'm sure you guys know this, you create this work and sometimes there are life situations that are going on. So when I published it, I was between jobs. I had just left teaching dance full-time at a performing arts high school in Los Angeles. I was figuring out, now what do I do with my life? I had just gotten accepted to graduate school. Then I moved to Jackson. I graduated from graduate school May 3rd. So there were all these things that were going on. And the biggest one was the confidence factor. Do you know what I mean? I put it out just like a little blip, but I was very nervous about just wholeheartedly tackling this and going, this is my work. I'm proud of it. I know the Lord told me to do it. I want to tell you about it. And so, I tell people this stuff I talk about, I got to walk this stuff out too, learning how to be an artist in relationship with God and fully embrace the creative path He's put you on without apology, working through all the emotional and mental things that come with that. I got to work that out day by day as well. And so I said, well, my birthday was on August 18th. And I said, okay, we've graduated from graduate school. We've done all this other stuff. My birthday present to myself is to give this stuff a chance to succeed. So I guess I got to open my mouth. I guess I got to tell somebody I did it.
I think as creatives, we can all identify with that. I actually market other people for a living, build their websites, sing about them and shout about them, because it's the hardest thing to do for yourself.
Exactly.
You do have to overcome certain things, but it's all relatable. Whatever creative practice you're in, there is that overcoming and stepping forward. So thank you for doing that. But what has your journey in faith and art been, and how did that influence you in writing Defying Discord and the podcast and that niche and all the other things you've done?
Okay, so I'll give you this version. So I was not interested in being an artist at all. When I say at all, I mean at all. Had no desire to be an artist. I actually wanted to be a psychologist, and I had known about art because my grandmother would take us to, different events at the theater and dance and stuff like that. So that's how I knew I didn't want to do it. And then there was this group called Boss Program, Building on Spiritual Substance. And it was this couple that had created this program to teach youth entrepreneurship based on biblical principles. Anyway, they had this resort up in the mountains, and during the holidays, they would throw festivals at this resort. So I was 15 and volunteering at this resort. And before then, I never can remember hearing God speak to me. Now, I knew He would, but I thought He would when I was an adult. I thought He only talked to adults. So, but they announced this dance ministry on the loudspeaker. And I heard this voice say, go watch. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was a who. And, I was like, I don't want to. I don't know why I responded. I don't know what it was, but it said it again and again. And finally, I went and watched. And when this dance ministry started to dance, it was like this elephant sat on my chest and like tears were pouring down my eyes. And one of the program mentors, she saw God dealing with me. She asked me if I wanted to go and meet them. And I said, yes, please.
Wow.
And then I was at rehearsal on Tuesday, and here we are 20 something years later. But basically that's how it happened. So I ministered with the Hush Company and traveled with them for 8 years. And it was in that company that I recognized, oh my gosh, I actually have a gift for this, particularly for teaching and choreography. So from there, the Lord led me to go to school for dance, of course. And by this time I was college age. And of course, I didn't grow up in the arts, so I didn't know you had to know how to dance to get into college for dance. So it took me about 9 years to get into a program. I was 27 when I finally got accepted into a university dance program. Then from there, I moved back home, got an opportunity to work at this performing arts high school in downtown Los Angeles. From the ground up, it was a brand new school, so I got to build the culture and build the dance program. It was an incredible experience. And that's where I really found my voice outside of the church. From there, the Lord led me to start choreographing in my own work. So I was, creating work in the community and the festival. And then around 2015, he told me, put it all down and create the Kingdom Artist Initiative. And I was like, what? Because the momentum was just starting to pick up on my choreography. He told me to put it down, build the Kingdom Artist Initiative. So I did. And that's when I started the podcast, The Kingdom Art Life. Then after that, a couple years after that came Defying Discord. Went to graduate school and so on and so forth. And here we are.
Amazing. And there's so much in all of that I'm sure we could all unpack, but I know you kind of use your experience and write it into the book, don't you? And it's very much a conversation, and that's what I like about the way you communicate. It's very relatable. I don't feel talked at, I feel kind of talked with, which is really, really nice. So tell us about the book and what inspired you to write it.
Yeah, so basically I wrote it because the Lord told me to. But as I started to write it, what was really compelling to me is I was hearing and reading about and listening to artists of faith who were really struggling to follow their career path in secular culture as Christians. And that was not my experience. It was the Lord who initiated this creative life for me. It was the Lord who led me out of what we would call ministry into a marketplace career in this. I was taught and brought up in church that I was supposed to be out in secular culture as an ambassador of the kingdom. So this idea of discord was something that I didn't struggle with. And for a while, that was difficult to write the book because I was like, well, where's my credibility when this is something that I didn't struggle with? And so the Lord helped me understand. It's like, no. I want you to talk from the other side and go, no, sweet. Come over here. The water's nice over here, y'all. Like, you don't have to struggle. You don't have to struggle. You don't have to do that. And so one of the things is for us as artists working in the marketplace, we don't have a lot of affirming conversation, right, about our experience out there. And one of the things that was really important for me in the book was that this not be a complaining fest against the church. And I think of the local church, because we are the church, but when I say the church, I mean the local four walls church. And I think of the church like family, right? You can't get rid of family. You got to love them. Crazy and all, warts and all, you got to deal with family. And so the local church is part of the kingdom, but it is not the totality of the kingdom. So I say, you may not be a church artist, but you are definitely a kingdom artist. And so the church has its function and its assignment in the kingdom, but in the marketplace, you have something separate. And so sometimes I would tell artists, it's not always that the church is against you. They just don't know what to do with you. What God has given you to do is different from what he's given the local church the assignment to do. And so what I wanted to do was, and what I felt compelled to do by the Lord, was to kind of write a love letter to marketplace artists and say, no, 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 you are a part of this kingdom. You are a part of this kingdom community. It is the Lord that is leading you, yes, even into that kind of art life. I know, the one that doesn't look like the kind of art life a Christian should create. Yeah, that's him. That's him leading you there. And that's important, because if we are not confident that that's God leading us, then we feel guilty and embattled about what we feel drawn to pursue. So then that creates a whole other host of issues. So this is why I wanted to write this book. Or should I say, I believe the Lord led me to write this book.
Yes, and I love the way you described it. You wanted to write a love letter, and that's so beautiful. And this book, it isn't structured or formatted like a normal non-fiction book. Tell us a bit about that.
So so I talk about it in the introduction. I'm like, listen, I know this is not what a normal nonfiction book would be structured like, but I wanted to write it as this just one long conversation that just, and I say, like, you know, those conversations that you have with friends when you're sitting on the couch, the ones that last for several hours and cover like multiple topics in one conversation. Well, this is kind of how I structured this book. Is it's just one unfolding conversation that's really exploring this idea of, how do we serve God and build the kingdom and make Christ known, which you described, right? Working out there, making that kind of art with those people. Because all of us who are functioning in the marketplace context have in some form at some point been asked some version of that question. Wait a minute, how could that be serving God? Wait, but you make art about that. How could that be, right? So why are you working with those people if all of us have been asked some version of that question?
Absolutely. And I just think it sounds like you want to curl up on a sofa with a hot chocolate and just chat with so you can do that with this book. So in this book, you write about 6 roles that are art plays in our faith walk, besides being a tool for evangelism. Can you expand on that a bit for us?
Yes. So something that the Lord really taught me is that our art is for our life, not just our Christian service. And as creatives, sometimes the only thing that we see, and we get caught up in this usefulness. How am I useful to God? And God did not give you your creativity to be useful to him. And one of the things I say is, God is not in relationship with you and I because we're useful to him. He's not in relationship with us because our gift is useful to him. He's in relationship with us because he's in love with us, and he's gifted us as an expression of that love. And so one of the things that he taught me is this creative life and gift that I've given you is for your life. It's for the things I want to do for you as someone that I love. It's for the things that I want to do with you, for the life that I want to build with you, right? It's for the things that I want to do in you, spiritual maturity and formation and fruitfulness, right? And it's for the things that I want to do through you, which is the service. So the 6 roles that I talk about in the book cover that for, with, in, and through. And so one of them is communion. And I liken that to a father who buys a fishing pole for his son so that they can go and spend time together as they fish. That one of the purposes for this creative life is that's a way for us to spend time with God in communion. Another one I said was formation. And with that, I talked about a potter, forming clay. And I remember when the Lord asked me, does a potter form clay in stillness? And I was like, no, they don't. They set it in motion and they form it while it's in motion. And in the same way, there are things that will never come up or surface as issues, or things that will never get formed in us while we're sitting still. So as we're going through all of the difficulty and the hardship and the joy and the wants and desires of building a career as an artist, the Lord is forming character in us as we're in pursuit of that career. Another one is instruction. I talk about the parables and how Jesus would speak and teach spiritual principles with birds, leaves, fishes, those kinds of things. And the reason he did that is because that's the experience those people knew. And so in the same way, the Lord will teach us about himself using the language we understand, which is our creative language. Another one I said is service. Yes, we are absolutely supposed to use this gift to build the kingdom and honor God. Absolutely. But not in the way that a lot of us, have been conditioned to do, which is, this very usefulness, transactional driven relationship. Then there's healing. I talk about how the Lord used dance to heal me. There were times when I would travel to minister to people and I was up on the stage dancing from my own life. Forget the rest of the people. I needed healing. And then the last one is enjoyment. And I think this is the hardest thing for us as artists in Christ to receive, is that God gave you this to enjoy. Like, if you're not enjoying your life and art unapologetically, then you are missing out on such a rich part of being an artist in relationship with God. So those are the 6 ways to serve in our art life.
And honestly, I'm hanging on every word, because there's so much depth into all of that. I mean, we couldn't just sit here and read the whole book. That's what this conversation is to kind of give those teasers an overview and that hunger for it. But there are a lot of books out there on faith and art. So why did you feel the need to write this, and where do you think this book fits in among the others?
Yeah, so, I have to give such incredible honor for the people that have come before and that kind of thing, and have been the precursors to this conversation and have, really laid the groundwork for this. For me in particular, something that I really craved was an everyday conversation. Like, how do I use this on Monday? Right? How do I use this tomorrow? And so I remember when I would go to different faith and art conversations and lectures, and they were wonderful and aspirational and beautiful. But sometimes I didn't know what they were talking about, because they were academic conversations for other academics, theological academics, right? So there was like, okay, first of all, I need a dictionary to understand half of what that means. Yeah, you shaking your head, Amy, because you know what I'm talking about, right? So sometimes, right? So sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what that means. You didn't write that for me. You wrote that for your colleagues. And then the other thing is, okay, this is great and aspirational, but then how do I use it? So I felt led to write a book that spoke to the everyday experience. Yeah. So even the examples that I use, you probably you would not see in another faith and art book.
I've still got a mental picture of this father holding a rod, just from what you shared a minute ago, and the pot of forming. And I love the way you use those very visual, descriptive kind of things, because as a visual person, as a visual creative, that is how my brain works. And so I form everything around pictures. So that's the way you communicate.
Yes, and in the last 4 chapters you'll have a lot of fun with, because I talk about our relationship with God as artists, and as artists we gotta if we want to walk in our art life in Christ without apology, you know, we got to deal with our daddy issues. You know, we got some daddy issues that we got to deal with about how the relationship we perceive we have with God, right? Because if we don't deal with that, that affects how much we'll allow him to be a part of our art life. And I remember in the last 4 things, he said, I want you to talk about this through the aspect of relationship. So I explore our relationship with God through a marriage that breaks up, a one-night stand, 2 friends flirting at work, and, you know, 2 friends that, you know, how do you know how to deal with different friends? And that was interesting. That actually lost me an endorsement. He was like, I love the book. I can't endorse it with a one-night stand in it. I was like, I totally understand, but I promise you, that's what the Lord told me to do. That's what he told me to do.
This was the analogies, aren't they? This to help picture that relationship and how people see it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. It lost you an endorsement. Well, you've got to do what God's told you to do.
Right, you got to do what you got. He loved it. He just was like, he just felt responsible to his congregation, and I totally respect that.
Yeah.
I had to do what I had to do.
I have so many questions I want to ask. I'm looking at my list here, and I'm having to go, no, we'll go to this one, because you write about fears about being a Christian working in secular culture, and this particularly struck out to me. And do you think that artists and creatives have an extra layer of fear? So I guess, like, you know, an accountant doesn't necessarily think, oh, I'm really scared to be a Christian accountant, because they're just doing accounting. But I think when you're a creative, what our creative, you know, our Christianity can come through our creativity. It might not be overt or obvious, but it feels like, or have you noticed that creatives struggle more with this in the secular context?
Absolutely. And part of that is what I spoke about earlier, is we really have trouble just receiving this as a gift given to us, right? To just enjoy. That's it. No other expectations, just to enjoy it. So there's that. I remember in the book, I talk about, there was a hip hop artist. He was a dancer, and I had taught a workshop, and he came up to me and he was just glowing about how much he loved taking class and that kind of thing, and just sweating and learning combinations. He said, but I feel guilty for enjoying it so much because I don't know how it honors God. I'm like, wow. And I remember thinking, how much more can you honor, right, a giver of something than to do, or honor the creator than to do what you were created to do? Like, how much more can you honor the creator than to do what he built you to do, first of all? But another reason that we struggle is because as creatives, our career is so intertwined with desire and ambition and notoriety and success. And that is not something that we are taught how to deal with, right? We are taught to be suspicious of desire, suspicious of ambition, suspicious of success. We struggle to value or put monetary value on our work because we think, well, God gave it to me. Either I'm supposed to give it away, or I'm not supposed to want to make money, or that kind of thing. So all of these things get wrapped up in that in ways that don't for a dentist or an accountant or that kind of thing, right? I mean, a dentist might have
Oh, you've muted.
I had a call come through.
Who's calling you in an interview?
Right? Do not disturb. So a dentist may have an ambition to own a dental practice or that kind of thing, but it is something very different from the kind of relationship that you get into, an interaction you get into from a creator and the audience that falls in love with that work, right? So we're not taught. Sometimes we hear you shouldn't want that. Those things are worldly. Sometimes there are things that are not said. We don't hear favorable conversation about how we manage and navigate desire and ambition in a way that honors God.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why we struggle with it.
I think, you know, part of the Christian Creative Network is to have those people that you can have these conversations with, because one of the things is that, you know, every creative I've spoken to all have the same kind of concerns, worries, struggles, doubts, imposter syndrome. And actually, but we're not actively in an environment where we can talk about it. You may be the only Christian creative in your secular place, or as a lot of creatives are sole traders and maybe work from home, so that there is this kind of discord of connection, and it takes relationship and time to get to those deep conversations, but you're diving straight into those, and you're allowing people to have those conversations with you, if they can't have them elsewhere, but even, I guess, starting those conversations so they can carry them on and go further and go more. Because I was going to ask as well, I wanted to touch on that. You talk about struggles we have in gaining confidence that the Lord is involved in our career, and that this is what he has for us. And you mentioned, you know, a bit about pricing work. Again, that is a common theme that I've seen with are you saying that is again, well, just expand on that a bit more. I can see you're nodding.
Yeah, because we are not taught how to have a healthy relationship with money in church. We're just not. How to have a godly relationship with money. And something that totally changed my life, I built my life off of this principle, is my friend, she had mentioned 2 Kings 4:4. And I was like, wait a minute, where's that at? And so she told me, and I went and read it. 2 Kings 4:4 is when the prophet Elisha is walking by this widow woman's house. And the widow woman, she says, prophet, my husband has died, and we have some debts, and I have, I need some help. And so the prophet asks her, well, what do you have in your house? She says, I have nothing but some oil. So then he gives her a strategy. He says, go to your neighbor's house, borrow some vessels, go pour that oil into the vessels, and then take it to market and sell it. And then you'll have enough to pay your bills and live on the rest. And the Holy Spirit freed my ever living life. And he taught me, right? That house, this is our house, right? And those ideas, those gifts, all that stuff is our oil. And the Lord was like, go find containers to pour that oil into. So that's what I do. I pour my oil into podcasts and books and creativity, your artwork, your music, all of that. And the prophet said, and then take it to market and sell it. That's in the Bible. Take it to the market and sell it. And then you will have enough to pay your bills and live on the rest. And so that is what I pray. Lord, show me all of the containers that I can pour these gifts, this oil into, so that I can take it to market and have money to pay my bills. And so sometimes we feel guilty, but I'm like, if the Lord is your provider, why can't that be one of the ways that he gives you provision? He gave you the gift and said, use it. Use the gift, right? But we don't have a lot of people saying that.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of people talking to us that this is godly. Yes. Now there's one thing for the Lord to tell you, sow that to her. Don't charge that price here, right? Then we listen to what the Lord says. But otherwise, yes, I charge unapologetically. Right?
Yeah. But I, just as you was talking, the vessels that this widow bought fancy vessels. They would have just been anything that could contain the oil, just clay, the ordinary. And sometimes we look for the special things to it's got to be this amazing thing, but actually no, God works through the ordinary. And he's,
Right.
what have you got? And wasn't it God said to Moses, what is in your hand? And it was his staff.
What's in your hand?
And to David, what is in your hand? It's the sling. And what is in your hand? And God can use that. But I guess that one about it's taking it to market, that's gold dust.
Yeah.
So I want to ask a couple more questions before I open the floor up. So if anybody else has got any questions, please do put them in the chat, or any comments, any feedback. I can see a few have come in already, which is amazing. But I wanted to firstly just ask a little bit about the journey, the writing journey. So, we all have challenges in producing what we do, but what were the challenges for you in this book?
So I think the biggest challenge that I have with every book is, well, there are a couple, like there are logistical challenges, and then there are like the emotional, feel good enough challenges, right? But the logistical challenge is, okay, out of all the things I possibly could say, what do I say? Like, what belongs in this book and what doesn't? And all of us as creatives, we face that when we're creating a work. You start with a blank canvas, or at the piano, or in the studio, or whatever, and everything's possible. But what is this that I'm writing? And so for me, with my books, I usually fight for the question I'm going to answer in that book. And so that was one of the hardest things. And then there was, I think the biggest thing was the confidence level to, because I talk and I tell people, don't listen to how I talk. I'm a passionate talker, and I talk like I have no care in the world, that I don't deal with any of these problems, that all my stuff is together. That's just how I come across. I don't know how to sound any other way. But I have to walk this stuff out day by day too. So when I wrote this, I was not a theologian. I still am not. I have no theology degree. I have none of that stuff. And so there was how could I possibly go as boldly as I have written this book and put this out there, right? So there was the Lord having to deal with me and say, no, I told you to do this, and I will make a way for you. So yeah, and then the way that he led me to write the book. Like, I remember I finished, which was crazy, I got a chance to finish writing this book in Spain. And I was sitting there, and like, I remember those last 4 chapters. And when he gave me the idea for the one night stay, I was like, Lord, I struggled with that for a couple of days. Like, are you sure? I need to make sure this is you. Like, I had pastors read it afterwards, because I was like, the stuff that I'm writing, I haven't heard it said like this before. And have I gone too far on this section, and that kind of thing. So I always have safeguards around me, pastoral safeguards, multiple pastors, friends that I trust in God to read this stuff to make sure, okay, did I go off the rocker? Because, I got to make sure. These are people's lives I'm speaking into, and I take that very seriously.
Yeah, well, there's a responsibility, isn't there? Anyone who's
There's a huge responsibility.
teaching or preaching, or there is a responsibility that comes with that. What was the highlight of writing it? Finishing? That's always a good feeling. What was the highlight for you?
I loved the freedom to write this in the way that I did, because I had to make a strategic and intentional choice to go against convention and to write it the way that I did. And even a couple of people that I got feedback from, they were like, well, typically a book is written like, I'm like, you didn't read the introduction, because I clearly explained why I did this. Anyway, but I had to say, no, this is the way that I felt led to write it, right? But I enjoyed writing the book. I enjoyed imagining what it was like for artists to read it. And I was like, when artists read this book, I want them to feel like we're sitting on the couch. And I had a couple people come and say, it felt like you were sitting right there talking to me. I'm like, yes, this is awesome.
That's what it meant to be like. So what is your writing process like? I'm not a writer, so I guess I'm asking because I mean there's a process in what I do in when I'm working with a client and I build their website, and I have to get inside their head and draw it out. And when you talked about fighting for the why, that is the question of what is a brand. Well, why are you there? So there are similarities in any creative process, but particularly for the writers out there, what is your process?
So first of all, I never thought I would be a writer. It was the Lord who told me to write the book, and I just thought it was one book. And then all of a sudden it was the next one and next one. And now I have this process, which is crazy to say. But one of the things I do, and I tell people, they just come as random ideas to me. They don't have a place, they don't have anything. So by the time I sit down and write a book, I've been collecting information about this for a while, thoughts and ideas on napkins, in notebooks, on my phone, just gathering them. And I don't know what it is, but there's a point where I can sense, oh, okay, it's time to start putting this together in a book, right? And so my first process is like an explosion went off, because there's notes everywhere, thoughts everywhere. And I've just been collecting, because people ask, they wonder, how do I write books so quickly? Well, because I've been thinking about this and tinkering and writing passages and playing with it and talking to myself and all that kind of stuff for a while. Like the 2 books that I'm about to write now, I've been writing about this for a couple of years. And now I'm like, oh, now I finally know where this information goes and what this is about. So I gather for a long time, pontificate for a long time, and then I get some kind of signal, sense, I don't know, knowing that I need to go and begin to bring this together. And then I'll start writing. First, I fight for my question, because otherwise I don't know what goes in the book or out, how to organize it, that kind of thing. And that just really helps me, because then it's just like, well, I'm answering the question. That's all. I just got to answer the question. Helps me know when to end the book.
Yeah.
Granted, I write nonfiction, so it's very different.
It gives you your boundaries, your brief.
Yes,
the question is your brief, isn't it? Otherwise, sky's the limit.
Absolutely. And it's like, it's the same as, like you said, with anybody, but it's the same as a choreographer. I go in, I can play with a whole bunch of different phrases and movements and music and that kind of thing. But until I can pin down what this dance is, then nothing takes shape until I can pin down what it is. And then I can begin to shape and place and arrange and all that kind of stuff.
Well, here's to many more books. I'm just looking in the chat, and we don't have any questions, but I'm going to read some of the feedback. This is Gold Dust Marlita. I love it. That's from Liz. Joy is saying, I appreciate what you are saying about everything, and God is giving us gifts because he loves us. Makes me think how there is a level on which I still do not know is heart for me. I think we're all still discovering more, Joy. For sure, I hear you. I used to feel guilty about wanting to be successful. So very true, from Charlene. Amy, I don't have a question, just wanted to say that I relate so much to what you are saying. I work in a very secular world of folk music and festivals, and it can be tricky balancing that with faith, but I feel God put me there. Although after 7 years and really getting into my stride, I'm feeling God calling me to do something else. So we'll see what happens. Thank you so much for this talk. So some wonderful feedback. So I'm going to touch a bit on the Kingdom Art Life course in a moment, but where can we find you, Marlita? Where can we find you online?
Yeah, so you can find me via my website, marlitahill.com. just my name, Marlita Hill. I am also on Instagram at I am Marlita Hill, but I say the best way to stay in touch with what I'm doing, and I do a podcast and that kind of thing, is to get on my mailing list, because you never know what the algorithm is doing. Well, let's get it on, Liz. Let's have a chat. Let's answer
Liz
some
wants to
questions.
talk. So Liz
Yeah,
is our branch leader in Shrewsbury. She leads it with her husband Joel, so she's a fellow writer.
yes. And so yeah, and it's so interesting because I was talking to one artist, and she said, "Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me." I said, "Girl, I'm trying to make friends too. I need people to talk about this too as well." So I love speaking to artists, and because I'm an artist, there are things that I learned from you guys and that kind of thing. So yes, please connect with me. I would love to get to know you.
Fabulous. So I put Marlita's website in the top of the chat. If you scroll to the top, you can see that. But I wanted to just, because we've got no questions, I can just spend a bit of time.
I saw one that came through. There was one that said, how do you deal with...
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes. That came through in the time that I was saying there are no questions. How do you deal with silence from God, but feeling he has asked you to do something?
So
I just have to read this. Sorry, our faces aren't there. We're sitting in the dark next to a campfire. I mean, that is the best way to listen to any conversation, next to a campfire. So yes, how do you deal with the silence from God, but you feel he has asked you to do something?
I have several follow-up questions to that to clarify. So email me. We'll really talk about it. But one of the things that I've learned is, well, there's several things that I've learned. One, God does talk. Do we recognize the way he's talking to us? First of all, sometimes he says something and we're waiting for something else, and it's like, but did you do the last thing that I said? Right? There's nothing else to say. It's like GPS, right? It says in 2 miles, you're going to turn left. And then it says nothing until you get closer to when you need to be spoken to. There's nothing else for me to say right now until you get closer to the 2 miles, and then I'll tell you to turn right. But until then, there's really nothing for me to say about this matter to you. So is it a matter of you haven't gotten to the place yet where you need to move? Because sometimes we want to hear everything before we move, and that's not how he works. Yes, that's not how he works. Do what I told you to do, and then I'll tell you the next thing when you need to know the next thing, which is extremely uncomfortable, right? Especially when you're not confident that it's the Lord leading you, but I promise you, he is faithful. So I would say those are the two biggest things. Is either we don't recognize the ways that he is speaking to us, or I'll say three things. We don't recognize the way that he's speaking to us, and he is speaking, right? Or we don't have confidence that what we perceive is him, that he would talk to us about something like that, right? That we haven't gotten to the place where we need further instruction, or he did say something, but you didn't do it yet, so you need to do that. Like, go back and do the last thing that I said. But email me and give me more details, and then we'll chat.
and do take her up on that, because Marlita is such a loving, giving person. So do join her mailing list, get in touch with her. But Joel says that's so meaty, loads of truth. Absolutely, absolutely. They're big fans of yours. So I've mentioned a couple of times the Kingdom Art Life course. Now, this is something that has been, it so excites me because, as I said right at the beginning, I've never felt that it was my calling to write a course. I very much have a calling on my life. It's a bit like a chef taking ingredients and mixing it into this thing. And one of the ingredients is a course, but I'm not called to do that. But Marlita, you have written one. And during lockdown, all of us as branch leaders, as you know, joined you, and we went through this course. And so that was, we've got the 8 branches. I don't think we could all do it. I think it was about 6 of us, and we all went through it, and we all just loved the conversations. And as branch leaders, we were all over the country, but we kind of came together on Zoom and did this course and got to know each other better, got to know each other's journeys of creativity, and exploring so much of what you've put into the course, which is kind of digging deeper into bits of Defying Discord. And when you talked about those 6 kind of roles earlier on, that's, I know that's part of the course, and it was just fabulous. And so this is an exclusive that we are going to be running the Kingdom Art Life course, and we're so excited to be doing that. We're going to just walk before we can run, but we're going to be rolling it out through the Christian Creative Network, and we'd love to do them locally, but because of the world of lockdown and because of this amazing tool called Zoom, we can do it online and have Marlita host it for us. So if you want to get more of this lady's wisdom, if you want to get more inside her head in a really wonderful format of a small group course where you each week, it's in a 4-week block, and then there are 2 other sections as well, so you can go on and do the 2nd and 3rd as well, but it's a 4-week course where you get to explore these conversations yourself. I'm very aware we've been talking tonight, I know there have been some questions, but if you do the course, you get to really just talk and explore. So there's notes to read and audio to listen to, and then discussions, and you just have conversations about your faith and your career in your arts. And so it's just a wonderful way. So we don't have any details yet, but it will be coming soon. We're all kind of coming out of lockdown. We're, a lot of us branch leaders are mums, we got kids and life and busyness, but this has been kind of a couple of years in the making. And I can speak, I think, on behalf of all the branch leaders that we just thoroughly enjoyed doing the course and can't wait to bring it into our branches. And so that would be, yeah, that's just something really exciting that I'm glad you guys get to hear this. I know some of the branch leaders have been kind of saying this in their branches as well. So it's yeah, it's just very good. But is there anything you would like to say particularly about the Kingdom Art Life course?
Yeah, so the Kingdom Art Life course is, I love it because it's we talk, and I say the Lord speaks to us through us. So it's not me sitting there and talking. In the course, you listen to some audio before, and then we come together to discuss the audio. So I've said my part in the audio that you listen to, and then it's us coming together in conversation. And we just, what's been really amazing as I've done this course with artists is how connected this walk is to so many aspects of our life. And I like to say I'm kind of a relationship coach, jokingly, right? So all my work focuses on the relationship between the artist and God, and the relationship between our faith and art career. Because once those relationships are solid as they're supposed to be, everything else just falls in line. I mean, granted, of course, you have to walk out the stuff, right? And that has its own journey. But those 2 relationships have to be solid. And so this course is really that yummy, gooey heart work that deals with, you know, questions of how we actually walk this out. Again, I'm about every day. So what does it look like to walk this out in your actual life, and the issues that we come across in doing that?
I can't wait. I can't wait to launch it.